Chairman McConnell, thank you. Secretary, an issue for me as a Kansan, but an issue for folks who fly out of Ronald Reagan National Airport. January 29th, Army Black Hawk helicopter and a commercial airliner arriving at DCA from Wichita collided midair. I know you're aware of it. You were involved in responding on the night of the accident, January the 29th. It killed 67 individuals, many of them Kansans. I want to hear a confirmation from you. Since that flight, I asked, as did the Department of Transportation, the FAA, that the helicopter flights emanating from the Pentagon be put on pause. It's my understanding from information from the Army is that since January 29th, 7 flights have taken off and landed at the Pentagon. 6 of those flights occurred during periods of high volume at DCA. One of those aircraft caused 2 different commercial flights to abort landing on May the 1st. And since this latest incident, I understand that all flights have been halted. My question is, will you commit to maintaining that restriction on all non-essential rotary flights, including VIP transport from the Pentagon until the Department of Transportation, the FAA, determines the safe way in which that can be done, if there is a safe way?
Senator, that was a very tragic incident, which can never happen again. We initiated an investigation immediately, worked directly with the Department of Transportation immediately. They've taken the lead on it. In real time at that moment, we even stood over maps and looked at routes to make sure we were ensuring that routes of Blackhawks were away from the flight path so that it didn't happen again. There are essential reasons why you may need to move along a corridor similar to that, but there is no authorization for VIP or convenience flights along that route. That is not the case and will not remain the case. You have our assurance that I'm working with Secretary Duffy very closely to make sure that the only flights that would be even in a modified path would be those that are necessary and authorized.
And that ban, except for that ban on non-essential flights, including VIP transportation, remains in effect until Secretary Duffy reaches a conclusion if it's possible to fly safely.
We are in direct coordination with Secretary Duffy, and we take his recommendations very seriously and work together, and only where there's a dynamic and ongoing need for the Defense Department would we push back and try to figure out a middle ground.
Thank you, and I compliment you on your response and engagement on January the 29th. I appreciate that very much, including the conversation you and I had that evening. There's so many national and international issues I want to talk to you about, but I also want to make certain that some things that no other member of this committee would ask about a circumstance that I've encountered in Kansas, and we've sought the Department of Defense's help, and we're fighting, in my view, we're fighting the bureaucracy. We have a Army Corps of Engineers lake in Kansas. It's next to a city, a community called Council Grove. It's a county seat town of several thousand people. Their community depends upon the tourist traffic and usage of that lake. They had a manager, a ranger at that lake. The Corps did. That ranger shifted to another lake. The hiring freeze prevented somebody from being hired to replace that person. The Secretary of the Army, I appreciate his cooperation, signed a waiver to allow the hiring, but now we have been told weeks to months for the Army Corps of Engineers to go through the hiring process to replace the person. And if I could get your attention or your staff's attention to see if there is not a faster way. This community says that the people who come to stay and visit the lake, so at the moment the marina is threatened to be closed. There's no one to clean the latrines. No one can check the permits. So the lake is unusable, and summer is the season in which this community thrives based upon visitors to the lake. And I was told by the Army Corps of Engineers they had the person they wanted to hire. that person had applied, but the hiring freeze prohibited him from being hired, and they have people in mind to be the seasonal employees to do the seasonal work at the lake. But now the bureaucracy, my word, not anybody else's, I suppose, the bureaucracy of the Army Corps of Engineers delays this even weeks or months longer. The season, we've already missed Memorial Day. Can you help me?
This is an issue we were made aware of almost in real time, and the Secretary of the Army was very responsive.
He was.
And I'm actually meeting, as it happens today, with the Director of the Army Corps of Engineers to, across the board, identify where this is happening and free it up, so it'll get special attention.
I appreciate that very much. The season is fast dissipating for the success of that community's economic well-being. It was reported that the Pentagon is or has diverted anti-drone technology intended for Ukraine to the U.S. Air Force in the Middle East. And the explanation for that was the safety and security of our military men and women in the Middle East depend upon this technology. And I assume no one can argue with the importance of protecting our military. Was there a precipitating factor that caused that circumstance to be, that move to be necessary? And is there any plan to provide Ukraine with the necessary technology to replace that those anti-drone defenses?
Senator, as you know, the Middle East is and remains a very dynamic theater. In the interest of putting America and Americans first, we're going to surge counter-UAS systems to our troops and our bases and our places first if we think there's a potential for a threat. And considering the environment there right now, that has been and will continue to be a priority for us.
What about the capability of resupplying or reinserting that technology into other places, including Ukraine? Is the capacity just not sufficient to do that?
We would have to review the capacity, but it's one of the challenges of all the munitions that we've given to Ukraine over these last 3 years. Is it's created some challenges in other places.
I can imagine that many things are frustrating to you as they are to me, and one is our inability to have a supply chain sufficient to meet the global demands of the United States military in our country. And it is a focus that I heard you say in your testimony is one of yours. And our safety is dependent upon a private sector supply chain necessary to meet all needs, in my view, including those of supporting Ukraine.